All right, guys. Hello. We are doing Let's Get Deep Bible Study, chapter 35 of Genesis. And, you know, want to be known again for, probably haven't said it in a while, but these Bible studies are meant to help us practically apply the word to our lives. We're not just studying to study to say that we know. We're not just studying to say, oh, I read through Genesis, I read through Exodus. We are studying with the intention of seeing ourselves in the text and how we can use the word to cut up this flesh so we can be sacrifices that are pleasing to the Father. To look within, to do that introspective work on how can I see myself in Jacob? How can I see myself in Esau? How can I see myself in the people who have foreign gods close to them? And Yah saying, put them away. So we're gonna go through all of that tonight, and I'm really excited to see how we all dialogue and like study this together. So I'm gonna go ahead and open up with Genesis 35, verse 1, and we're gonna stop at verse 2. Then Elohim said to Yaakov, go up to Bethel and settle there, and build an altar there to Elohim, who appeared to you when you were fleeing from your brother Esau. So Yaakov said to his household and to all who were with him, get rid of your foreign Elohim you have with you, and purify yourselves and change your clothes. I'm gonna keep going, sorry. Then come, let us go up to Bethel, where I will build an altar to Elohim, who answered me in the day of my distress, and who has been with me wherever I have gone. So they gave Jacob all their foreign gods they had in the rings in their ears, and Jacob buried them under the oak at Shechem. So I said I was gonna stop at 2, but I stopped at 4. Um, so when I first read this, I just couldn't get past the putting away like the foreign idols, the foreign things. And so um me and T were breaking down some of these words. And so like it said cleanse yourselves and change your garments. And so we're getting into this space where Yah is calling for not just Jacob and his seed, but for everyone that is under Jacob's house, everyone who is under Jacob's authority, to literally have to know you have to do something within the purification process too. So practically applying it to our lives, saying like, we know that the blood of Yahushua cleanses, right? But that doesn't mean that we are without action. We ourselves also have to take it upon ourselves to be like, what do I need to remove from my life? What do I need to take out of my thought process, of my house, in my mind, in my heart? What are the foreign elements that Yah is not pleased with because he wants to purify me? But purification is a two-person process. It's Yah's spirit who wants to purify you, but you have to be willing to want to be purified. And so Jacob saying, put them away. And the changing of like the ceremonial clean, purging to present oneself for purification. So again, you have to present yourself to want to be purified. And he's like, these images, these false images, anything that looks like, anything that has an image or a figure that is similar to something that's not of Yah, that's an image. And then T really broke down this word stranger. So there's stranger, and there's the root word for like the strange gods. So the first root word is strange, as in like a foreigner, an alien, something unknown, vanities, used for like strange gods or idol worship. But then at the root is the verb, the action. So a foreign god, a strange god, is not just the idol itself. It can also be things that you acknowledge, things that you know, things that you recognize, things that you pay attention to, things that you observe and regard that is outside of what Yah esteems, knows, discerns, and regards. And so even though you may not have an idol in your house, you may have some thought processes that are not of Yah. That's strange. That's a strange God. And so this concept of strange fire is deeper than what we really thought it was. It's like, do not have any practices or thoughts that come from other nations. Put away the images and the acknowledgement of those things out of your spirit. Our thoughts are foreign, and our understanding in our mind can be like a foreign God or an idol. I really want us to like really meditate on that, because we're so used to looking at the tangible idols or talking about the tangible things like, oh, the Christmas tree and the Easter bunny, but like it's so much deeper. It's like your mind essentially is a foreign God, which is why Yah says, do not lean on your own understanding. Your understanding is foreign. And so Yah's like, I need you to get into my understanding. So to put away your own understanding. And so, because it's vanity, like we cannot keep any strange things, thoughts, practices, because it's equal to idol worship. So we really have to meditate on this and to know that the work is serious of allowing Yah to renew our minds. The presence of anything outside of Yah's word and will is indicative to divided loyalty. And so I know I said a mouthful, but like we were going through this, I'm like, whoa, it's like it's so deep and it's very intentional work um, that we have to wrestle with in ourselves to literally purge out. It's possible because we can do all things through Yahushua who strengthened us, but to know that there's a work that we have to be partnered with in doing this purification and this purging that Yah wants to do in us.
I like that reset button because this whole time they've been traveling with him and they joined his house, not just for his wives or his children. He's talking to the house. So whatever they picked up along the way, he's like, okay, but as of today, as a deliberate thing. And the leadership part of it is that they followed, they acknowledged him and agreed and, understood the concept. But he's teaching, he's sharing, like, this is the vision for the house. And again, he's standing doing something that he's seen his father do and was well respected amongst everybody. But you breaking down the breaking that verb part is you right. Immediately we like, well, I don't do that bad stuff. But it could be the worship of food or some other thing, like just how we handle situations, and immediately we make like that's easier or that's not as bad as some of the other things, right? For the smoker, for the drinker, I don't do that, but I got my other stuff over here. And I guess for me, the nuggets to pull out of there when the root of that would be like the discipline, because maybe it's not something you do, maybe it's the things that you don't do, right? Like for me, I've been trying to be more intentional about studying my word. I listen to stuff all day, but I don't read a lot. So but like we do still have to be accountable for that, because I that strange fire, that word and breaking it down in context, that's a lot to meditate on, because we all would have something in us that we need to purge or, um, get back in line with God, because that's what he's saying, the false idol. And we can pick that up from anywhere. And we could be complacent in places to pick that up from anywhere, not intentionally, right? But if daily you're meditating and focusing on that, then you can pull it out. That's some good notes, Miss T. Thank you.
And just to add on to that, what Taryn was saying and Samaria, going over everything. It's really like it's all about that identity change. Like we talked about Jacob receiving his identity change into Israel. So now he's had that transformation, and so just like Samaria said, like, that everything attached to him has to have that same transformation, has to have that identity change. And when you have that identity change, it's not just, you're changing identities. Obviously, we know this is a spiritual thing when we're changing identity. So it's not that, you have a different face, you're changing your hair or whatever. No, it's literally what's inside of you is what changes everything inside of you. So all those foreign thoughts, all of those things that you were or were attached to you before has to change. So now it becomes a thing of it really becomes a stranger. It really becomes foreign, because like now when you say that you have a certain way of dealing with a situation, right? Before that identity change. But then after the identity change happens, that way and those thoughts should be foreign to us, like once we have that identity change. So that shouldn't even be a thought in our mind to even react or do those same things, because now we have been transformed. That's a foreign thing. So now when somebody comes to us, and try to, trigger or try to bring those things out of us, it's like, I don't, like, I don't know what that is, like, because that's no longer who I am. Obviously we recognize it, but we do not conform to those things anymore. So when we were going through the words, and the noun and the verb, it was like, wow, it really clicked, because it's like, we are literally supposed to have that full identity change to where all of those things become foreign, and that obviously comes with the killing of the flesh, because, we know that flesh, the flesh is weak, but the spirit is willing. So we know that, the spirit within us, Yah's spirit within us, wants to allow us to have that identity change and fully walk in the identity that Yah has given us. But it's the flesh that is trying to fight against that spirit, trying to keep the dead things inside of us, or attached to us. So yeah, I just wanted to add that, like, we see that identity change. You now Jacob. So now when we were going over the notes, I was like, Israel, because now he's received his identity change. So he's no longer Jacob, he's Israel. And now everyone else is, he's pretty much enforcing, it's that order. Yah gave it to Jacob or Jacob, he got his identity change, and now he's enforcing it, because he's the head of his house. So.
And he made them bury that thing, like see it going underneath your foot, like that's it. And we can walk off and leave it there. But wow, that's good too. The whole identity, because we say that we're born again and then we struggle with things. But if we believed it from the totality of the identity change, then we wouldn't look back. We wouldn't still hear the extra voice, but he made them bury that thing. That's good.
When we're talking about like the word change, so I didn't get to change yet, but like it still goes into the whole like putting away the foreign gods. But the word change literally means to like pass on our way, literally burying it, for it to vanish, to cut it off, to grow up. Like, you got to mature now. There's some things you can't do no more. You got to grow up. You need to alter how you act, how you think, change for the better. Like, it literally means for the better. To cause to revive and to sprout forth as a tree. So it's just like when we are called to have a renewed, changed mind in what Yah's calling us to do, it involves all these different facets, like the cutting off part. Sometimes that it's gonna hurt. Sometimes cutting off certain things, it hurts. That's what circumcision. You can't be changed in your heart for not circumcision is literally cutting. It's a cutting. It's painful. So I don't know how it was for everybody in this household, but like looking at it on my own life, when Yah's causing me to change, like my thoughts are foreign, his thoughts are holy, but to me, holy is foreign. So it's like this hard process of like, yeah, you're telling me to do it this way, and it don't make no sense to me, because Yah's like, holiness to you is foreign, and your uncleanliness is foreign. Your own mind is foreign, but you think it's normal. So he has to reset us. He has to, like you said, the reset of like, what you think is normal is actually foreign, and it's a strange fire to me. And my ways are foreign to you because you have not known me. And it's just like getting to know Yah is meeting with him and being like, dang, I really didn't know you, because I was leaning on my own understanding. I had all these other ways I thought were holy and righteous and good. And he's like, you don't know me yet. We just getting started, baby girl. Like, we're just getting started. I want you to know me, but it takes this level of surrender to be like, yeah, this holy way seems strange to me, but I'm gonna do it because clearly I'm the one that's wrong. Like, we're the only ones that's in disobedience. Okay, Yah's not disobedient. Yah is holy. He's righteous. He's just. Everything that he got is good, and it's us. So literally putting us down, being like, you know what? I keep thinking that I'm right, but like Yah's saying, do it this way. And it's that wrestling that Jacob had to wrestle. We have to wrestle. We talked about this a couple weeks ago. Like, wrestling with Elohim, being a part of Israel, is this having to tug with what you think is okay versus what Yah is saying, nah, go this way. And your flesh is like, no, the spirit and the flesh never agree. Like, that's the word. And it's true when we really apply it to our life. So I don't ever want people to think that like, oh, you've been born again, it's going to be easy peasy. Don't let nobody tell you that. Okay, it says work out your salvation with fear and trembling. And so there's this moment as we are being purified, purifying fire, that don't feel good. So like, yes, he wants to purify us, but also to know that when you are agreeing for the purification, agree to also know that you have to do an internal, like, pulling apart of things that are foreign, that you don't think are foreign. And I hope I'm not talking in circles with you guys, but I've been through this. I know a lot of us a lot of us have gone through different circumstances, and it's not a one-time process. And so it's like knowing that, so we can be prepared to get in the fire where Yah is, so that that pulling apart, that change, that cutting off, the putting things away can be done. Because when you come out of it, you're revived. You sprout forth like a tree. It's this beautiful change, but like in the process of it happening, it doesn't feel good. And so I'm pretty sure some of the people in his house, probably didn't want to put away some of their gods, but they want to. But at the end of the day, it's not about what you want to do. It's about being obedient. So that part too. I'm pretty sure everybody wasn't on board. They probably still in their heart wanted to serve their other gods, and they probably did in their heart. But it's like at the end of the day, I'm gonna be obedient to the head of house. And that's the key takeaway, is like, even if you're not willing right now, be willing to be obedient, even in your heart at first, you don't really understand the vision. Be obedient when you don't know, because then Yah will give you the revelation as you continue to walk with him. And so we have some really cool scriptures we want to pull out about this whole purification and change. It's like all over. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's New Testament too. And we're going to talk about Yahusha. And so we got our banner scripture for our Bible study. So if anybody didn't know, this is our banner scripture. It's Ezekiel 36, verse 26. And this is literally what our Bible study was created and intended to do. So like, we don't just do Bible study here. This is about accountability with each other. This is about stretching you and challenging you and me, because this is a group process, to literally be cleansed so we can do what Yah's called us to do. So in 36:26, it says, okay, a new heart. Oh wait, I'm gonna go a little further up. Okay. I'm gonna start at 24. I will take you from among the heathen. So I'm gonna take you from around the strange nations, the strange gods, the strange people, and gather you from all the countries, and will bring you into your own land. So Yah's literally saying to Israel, to all the scattered, like, I'm gonna take you out of the foreign places that you've been. You learned things in them foreign places. You was doing some stuff in them foreign. We were doing stuff. We are doing things that are foreign. I'm gonna gather you from other countries and bring you into your own land. Then I will sprinkle you with clean water, and you shall be clean. That's that word. It's the same word, purify. When Jacob said, I'm a, purify yourself. It's the same word in Hebrew. From all of your filthiness. Again, our standard is filthiness. Our standard is foreign to him. And from all of your idols, and will cleanse you. That same word is cleansed again. A new heart I will give you, and a new spirit I will put within you, and I will take away the stony heart out of your flesh, and will give you a heart of flesh. And I will put my spirit within you, and cause you to walk in my statutes, and ye shall keep my judgments and do them. That is the picture of what it looks like to come from a filthy place, to come from a filthy mindset, and for Yah to wash you, to cleanse you, to put his spirit within you. And so like, it's a process. And then we got 2 Timothy. Does anyone want to read some of these? I got 2 Timothy chapter 2, 20 through 21.
I'll read, sis. I'm just trying to find it. 2 Timothy, chapter 1, you said?
Chapter 2, verse 20 through 21.
But in a great house there are not only vessels of gold and of silver, but also of wood and of earth, and some to honor and some to dishonor. If a man therefore purge himself from these, he shall be a vessel unto honor, sanctified, and meet for Adonai's use, and prepared unto every good work.
Hallelujah. It's that word purge again.
Hallelujah.
So, what'd you say? Oh, I thought someone was saying something. But that's that word purge again. So like, Yah's telling us, like, if it's that word, that's if you'll do it, then he'll purge you. So that's that thing about that willingness, that surrender. And so I also wanted to read 1 Peter chapter 1, verse 14. Here's that word again, that obedient. As obedient children, not fashioning yourselves according to the former past strange lust in your ignorance. So the things we did when we didn't know no better, things we thought was okay. But he has called you as holy. So be ye holy in all manner of conversation, because it is written, be ye holy, for I am holy. And if ye are called on the Father, who without respect of persons judges according to every man's work, pass the time of your sojourning here in fear. For as much we know that ye are not redeemed with corruptible things as silver and gold from your vain conversations received by traditions from your fathers, but with the precious blood of Hamashiach, as of a lamb without blemish and without spot. And so again, it's talking about, that purification. If we keep, I think I can keep reading. I think it goes even a little more detail. Y'all okay if I keep reading? Okay. Who verily was foreordained before the foundation of the world, but was manifested in these last times for you, who by him do believe in Elohim, that raised him up from the dead and gave him glory, that your faith and hope might be in Elohim, seeing ye have purified your souls in obeying the truth through the Ruach unto unfeigned love of the brethren. See that ye love one another with a pure heart fervently, being born again, not of corruptible seed, but of incorruptible, by the word of Elohim, which live and abide forever. Yeah. So this whole purification thing, it goes all the way through the book. It goes all the way through our faith. So I just want to tie those words together, because I was just like, wow. Yeah. Hold on, I see something in the chat. My screen is not as big as I want it to be today. Oh, he's like, it definitely does not feel good. That's how we know it's right. Girl, yes. Yeah, that's for real. I put a whole bunch of scriptures in here, y'all. I really just want us to just see how many times this word purge and purify, to put away, all these things kind of go together. But we have Psalms 51, wash me thoroughly from my iniquity and cleanse me, that's that word again, from my sins. Purge me with hyssop and I shall be clean. Wash me and I shall be whiter than snow. Who can say I have made my heart clean? I am pure from sin. And then we have Isaiah 66. So this is the part where, leaning on our own understanding is not good, because it's basically saying they that sanctify themselves and purify themselves, we cannot purify ourselves. We cannot decide what is holy, what is sanctified, what is pure. Because it's in our, again, trying to use our own mind, our own understanding to try to decide what is right and holy. This is what Isaiah is talking, or this is what Yah is telling Isaiah to tell the people in this chapter. They're sanctifying themselves, they're purifying themselves, they eating swine's flesh and the abomination of the mouths, and they shall be consumed, because they want to set the standard of what they deem is right, holy, and pure. And because they made their mind, you've made your mind an idol. You've made yourself a foreign god when you purify yourself by your own thoughts. And it just goes on and on about purification. So I'm not gonna read all these because we can be here all night. But they are in here for study. Where do we stop? Okay.
You went to verse 4, sis.
Okay, at 4. Okay. So 35, verse 5. Then they set out, and the terror of Elohim fell on the towns all around them, so that no one pursued them. Jacob and all the people with him came to Luz, that is Bethel, in the land of Canaan. There he built an altar, and he called the place El Bethel, because it was there that Elohim revealed himself to him when he was fleeing from his brother. And so I just want to pause there. And so we're seeing this. So obviously Bethel means the house of Elohim. And I put in his distress. And so so we have to let's go to the house of Elohim, and I'll make an altar unto Elohim, who answered me in the day of my distress and was with me. The word distress isn't just in trouble, but it's affliction. It's not just physical trouble. It's your affliction, anguish, tribulations, trouble. So we talked about how this internal struggle, if we're dealing with like emotions of anger or sadness or depression, like that is what the scripture calls a distress. So at the root word, it also means like adversary, foe, oppressor, hard, flint. So I don't want us to think of oppressor of just a person. Yes, that is one outlook on it, but the oppressor is literally a spirit of the adversary can oppress us. However he tries to use it, however, whatever device the enemy tries to use to make us feel like we're oppressed. That's why David says, like, oh, Yahuwah, let not any iniquity have dominion over me. That's oppression. When iniquity has dominion over you, it oppresses you. It keeps you, that's that bondage that Yahuwah came through Yahusha to set the captives free. Like that is what the oppression that Yah is gives us to be released from. It means to be strained, to be bound, to be pressed hard upon, to be vexed, or to show hostility toward. So all these different ways that we try to talk about distress. And so I know my coach T, she works like in litigation. And so I saw the word like distress, and I thought about emotional distress and like physical distress. And so like physical distress can be caused by physical stressors such as environmental toxins, extreme weather, or illnesses, but it can also be caused by emotional distress, such as death of a loved one, divorce, or any interpersonal conflicts. And so I'm gonna let T talk about it because she did some really good insight about like emotional distress and how like only Yahuwah is the one that can really like be with us in these distresses.
So I was just like working in I used to work in bodily injury. So with bodily injury, of course, somebody gets hurt in a car accident. And that can cause, like Samaria said, physical distress and emotional distress. So certain insurance policies, cover, well, I mean, I think all insurance policies, some states it's optional, some states it's not. But to cover, for you to carry bodily injury insurance, so that if you hit someone in an accident, then, you have to pay for their emotional, which we call pain and suffering, and their physical bodily injury. So when we were talking about this, I was like, it's so interesting because when you're an adjuster and you're trying to adjust a claim, a bodily injury claim, you can't measure emotional distress. It's not something that you can measure. You can't put a dollar amount on it, right? And so a lot of people end up getting a lot of money for pain and suffering because you cannot, if somebody say, if they demand $10,000 for their pain and suffering, I cannot say, you don't deserve $10,000 because I cannot be inside of that person. I can't experience the emotional distress that that person is experiencing, right? I'll only look from the outside in. And obviously, if someone gets into a car accident and their passenger dies, that's a lot of emotional distress, that they have to deal with. I can't, a sorry is not going to fix that. Me saying sorry, I really don't understand. I can empathize with them, but I really don't understand. So we're thinking about like the emotional distress. I'm like, that's how that it is a Yah job. Like it's only something that the Most High can cure and can heal because he's the only one that can see internally. He's the only one that can measure that hurt within us. That he's the only one that can actually see that, so it's nothing, it's nobody except the Most High, in Yahuwah that can actually cure us from that emotional distress. So it's like, just seeing that he's the only answer, we already know that, but when we looked at it in that instance, like it just kind of made it a little bit more clear, or, just putting it into a practical situation, it just made it become a little bit more real, to where you're like, this is why I have to lean on Yah. Like he has to be my foundation. He has to be, everything in my life because he is the only one that has all the answers and the solutions.
That's so good too, because when I was researching emotional distress, and I came across like a law page, and it talked about like PTS, depression, anxiety, all like what we call now mental illnesses and whatnot. And people get on all these because we have removed Yah from the healing process. And we're just like, oh my gosh, I'm depressed, I have anxiety, like I can't sleep, all these different like emotional responses that affect the body, that affect the mind. We remove Yah out of the process and we run to man to go put us on some medication or things like that. And that doesn't always, well, sometimes it just puts you in a state of where like you're not even fully yourself. And Yah's just like, if you put me at the forefront, I can heal any and all distresses. But because our common response, our foreign minds are like, this is what the norm is to handle this type of distress, but we don't ever put Yah in the equation. We don't ever lean, we don't ever have that balance of trust. And so, not to like shame anyone, but like to put it in this like concept of like, we have so many people who deal with emotional distresses to the point where it can literally alter their quality of life. And it's just like, Yah is the answer, you know, and like, it sounds like a simple answer because it is a simple answer, but it comes with so much work. Yes, Catherine, he is the medicine.
Mm-hmm.
He is the medicine. He is the Prozac. Like, he's that.
Mm-hmm.
But it requires us to want to, again, that obedience, the willingness to want to remove the foreign things and to be vulnerable. Like, this type of work only happens when we are ugly and honest before Yah. Like what Miss Rachel said, like, he gonna see me in all my raggedy because I know I can't go nowhere else. He's the only one that has the answer. He's the only medicine. If we can't be honest and be like, Yah, I have anxiety. I'm stressing over it. I know your words say to not stress, but I got stress. I know your words say to not be anxious for nothing, but I'm anxious. Like, that's that confessing. I know you told me not to be anxious, so I need to forgive this person, but I can't do it right now. I'm angry. I'm upset. If we can't be honest and be like, my error is that like I'm holding on to anger. My error is in my heart, I really don't want to do that. But if we can't be honest in the first steps, it's going to be really hard to get that purification and that healing medicine that Yah has for us, because it's like you have to release it. We talked about like that they wept, like that whole releasing. You can't praise Yah with a fist closed. You can't receive with a fist closed. He's like, I need you to, all of it, anything, all of it. Just, do you believe I'm capable? You know? So that's why we have to, it's the narrow path because it's a journey. We have to walk. And every day is like a faith step. Like, okay, I did it today and it was hard, but like, okay, let's try again. Let's do this again. Oop, I kind of misstep. Okay, you got me back on path. Let me try this again. But it's just that it's a very intentional process.
Something I do with the I mean personally, but I try to share it with my kids is, you know, when I'm feeling anxious, because I feel like that's my first like beacon to know something's off, right? But in prayer, I'm asking like, what's the root of it, right? Like, what do I doubt? What do I fear? The anxiousness. And sometimes it's not a fear thing, but it's a control thing. Or maybe it's asking for help. But why do you have to be so independent? And why are you worried about that? But like with the kids, I told you I'm a list person. I always tell them like, my son got hit in like March, totaled the car out, right? But immediately he's like, oh my gosh, my car. He probably had that car for like a month or two. But I was like, and that's why you pay your insurance. And that's why you safe. And that's why you're not, you know, she wasn't in the hospital. You're not in the hospital. But immediately I'm telling him like, you know, there's 3 other cars here at the house, right? Like you don't have to figure out how to get to work tomorrow with the baby and catch a ride from the neighbor and, you know, all this type of stuff. So there's provision here, right? Like insurance company paid for a rental and then you got a new car and then the new car was $2 more than the old car payment. Like, you know, but just telling him that like life is going to happen, but we can't be in a space and not think that, you know, stuff doesn't come to us. And that's what we're fearful for. But in the midst of me like making all those lists for the kids, then I come back and then I'm walking my floor and I'm like, I thank you, God, that like, you know, we're able to provide for our kids. Like me and my husband, we like, okay, you hurt. Like we just worried about, are you safe and you good? Like that car don't, you know, mean whatever, but you didn't hurt somebody else as well. But that thing to remind me that that provision is way bigger than I could ever think about. You know, when you get up in the morning and pray for the safety of your kids, you pray for your coming and going and those things. But the anxiety piece of it is I look for like what's troubled in me, right? and what's the control issue, or what don't I want to submit, or what did I let the enemy, tell me? Because when I was telling y'all a couple of weeks ago, went to the doctor said some stuff I didn't like, and then now I'm anxious, right? Like that whole thing. But how about I eat right? Like, how about I start making some changes in my life to take better care of my body, or, a number of different things. So ask y'all to bring that stuff to me, so then maybe I don't get those anxiety and depression and, extra things to go through. Sometimes it's just a work of, again, like you said, the submission piece. Bring it all to him. Talk to him about everything, right? And then we can start to get some clarity and purge that stuff off of us. Because a lot of times we carry stuff we shouldn't be carrying. And that's why the things get muddled there.
Oh yeah, that is so true. And so like that goes into like the next thing, like you hit on a lot of stuff I was about to say. The circumcision that Yahuwah is calling all of us to, it cuts through feelings, emotions, past hurt, betrayals, personal thoughts, our worries. We are called to long suffer. That's a fruit of the spirit that can only be produced in distress, in tribulation, in the fire of adversity, in the seat of offense or persecution. Like, we talk about fruits of the spirit all the time, but it's like this is one that we sometimes forget about. The long suffer piece. Yahuwah wants to be with you in your distress, because that is where our deliverance happens. That is where he removes and cuts off anything that has dominion over us. Any distress that keeps us from walking in the light of his instruction is a tool that the enemy will use to hinder your ability to surrender and to submit to Yahuwah, just like Sis Taryn was saying. And so being able to do that interpersonal work, that, okay, y'all, like, what's the root of this? What's in me that's allowing me to not submit to this to you? Why am I refusing to do it your way? Like, why can't I submit this? Like, what is it? Because if we can't figure out what that is, and if we do figure it out, but we won't submit it to the Father, that's an area that the enemy is going to use over and over and over again, which is why, like, Yahushua is literally sent to us to like break the captives free. Like, a lot of times we are in captivity to our own distresses. And so that's, just wanted to like say that. But again, about the word about, so I want to talk about this word like distress. So in other verses, in other words, it's the same Hebrew word, but when you read it in like, the English, it translated to adversity or troubles. So I put up Proverbs 17:17. It says, a friend is loved at all times, but a brother is born for adversity. Like, who's my mother, my brother? Those who do the will of the Father. Like, your brothers and your sisters will be with you, will work with you in that adversity. Sometimes a friend, they can be there when times are good, like, oh yeah, I love you all the time. But if any of y'all have siblings, y'all didn't have sibling fights, y'all didn't have some disagreements. Some of y'all didn't actually have fist fights with your siblings. That's your brother though. That's your sister though. Like, it's a different kind of love, because it's an endurance type of love. I'm a long suffer with you because you're my brother. I'm a long suffer with you only because you're my sister. If you was anybody else in here, I would have catched, like, I'm done with you. But it's a different, like, who's my mother, my brother? Like, who am I going to go through this adversity with? Again, another one was who, so this is a good one too for us to keep in mind. Whoso keepeth his mouth and his tongue keeps his soul from adversity, keeps his soul from distress. So basically that watching your mouth, watching your language, watching what you say can keep you from a lot of distress. Again, power is in the, and life and death is in the power of the tongue. So we might be saying some things, we be talking about, oh, I'm just depressed, I'm just so sad. Girl, shh. Why are you giving that thing life? Why you just didn't go to prayer with it? Now you just venting, but you don't release things out, and you're saying things and you're accepting things. Yeah. And it was at Proverbs 24:10. Oh, this was a good one. I read this one a couple months ago, but it was like in another translation where it's very like blunt, but I'm just gonna read the King James. If thou faint in the day of adversity, your strength is small. Basically, like, if you just cut out when things get hard, you ain't got no strength. You weak. And it was just like, it sounded kind of rude when I read it, but I was just like, no, that's for real, because he calls us to long suffer. He calls us to endure to the end. Like, if things get hard and you jump ship, you wasn't really about that life, But yeah, go ahead, sis.
So when I think about that, I mean, I did 24 years in the Air Force, and probably, like my first big leadership role, or I had a peer who said, pair yourself with someone who has a strength in the area where you have a weakness, right? But again, I'm thinking about like kind. And I had an aunt, and from sun up to sundown, she complained all day long, like a complaining spirit. Ain't nothing enough spirit. She just ain't never happy spirit, and y'all don't understand spirit, and But like when you sit up under that, right? Then you kind of pick up those things. But if you sit with somebody who's positive, what we gonna do about it? What's the plan? What do you want prayer for? Well, did you confess that thing? Did you, like are keepers, like motivators, but you need like kind. You need somebody to pick you up like that, right? And from a space of how you said how we're confessing that thing, it definitely don't be intentional. How sometimes somebody do that. But if you got your good sister, your prayer person, somebody then they'll know how to help you come out of that thing too, to help you I don't know, just bring you out, and then you can start to meditate, because again, we're talking about the changed mind. And if you're trying to change all of that and bury those old things and create a new, space to move closer to y'all too, then you need a helper. You need somebody to definitely pour into you in a space like that, so you can start to build yourself up, and then you'll continue and go on to do that same thing. But hey, sis, she said she was just getting off work. But
No, sorry.
I've kept that from the corporate world, to apply it from life. And you pair yourself with somebody who's gonna, speak a good word and bring all of that and pour into you, so you can root up those things, whether it's the language, because some of us will get to a space to where I don't say it, but I'm still thinking of it, or I still hear that voice, whatever. So, that prayer partner, that sisterhood, somebody can help bring you to a space of like, yeah, like let's figure out how to speak that positivity or speak the word, really, right? Like let's speak that and change our behavior.
Me and T were on the phone earlier. We were just saying like, we need to make something be very, very clear. Look, if you're gonna call me, I'm gonna give you solutions. I'm gonna give you the word of Yah. If you're gonna call me and tell me about your problems, okay, so what we gonna do about it? Because what we're not gonna do is give space and give way to a spirit of complaining. Because like that's something that I have to be actively telling people. Because sometimes you're like, well, I didn't call you for that. I'm like, well, you don't need to call me then. You don't need to call me if you don't want to like talk about how we can handle this the right way. When I say the right way, I'm gonna give you scripts, okay? And if you ain't trying to hear the scripts, you might need to just stop calling me, because I'm not gonna change my tune for you. I'm sorry. But it's lit like, oh, and this goes into Proverbs 25:19. Confidence in an unfaithful man in times of adversity or trouble is like a broken tooth and a foot out of joint. So like back to that, like what Taryn was saying, like if you have your friendships or your fellowship with people who are unfaithful, and when I say unfaithful, I mean like unfaithful to the word, unfaithful to doing it Yah's way, in time when times of trouble come about, you like they're not going to be able to help you. They broken themselves. They're out of alignment themselves. Like if we can't be faithful in adversity, that's another fruit of the spirit, faithfulness. Like faithfulness, long suffering. These are all these words that literally mean to endure through something that doesn't feel good. And so I want to read Hebrews 2:10, because again, it just all ties into that. In bringing many sons unto glory, talking about Yahusha, to make the captain of their salvation perfect through suffering. For both he that sanctified and they who are sanctified are all of one, are Kai. For this cause he is not ashamed to call them brother, not friend, not homie, no, to call them brothers, sisters. Again, back to that Proverbs, a brother is made for adversity. He talking about suffering, perfect salvation through suffering. That's adversity. A brother, like this is the literally walking with your brothers and your sisters doesn't feel good. And so the fact that we're talking about this now, when Jacob's literally saying, like, you was with me when I had to face Esau. Because for Jacob, in hindsight, because we're keeping it to the word, but we're also keeping it practical, Jacob had to face his brother who wanted to kill him. Jacob was in distress for years about what was going to happen when he saw his brother again. He had to wrestle with Yah about his own thought processes, about how he was feeling about this fear that he had in him. Whether it be fear, anxiety, pride, hurt, whatever it was, he had to wrestle with Yah. He had to suffer through to get this change, and Yah was with him. He's making this altar right now saying, I'm building this altar to Yah because he was with me in my distress when I had to face Esau. And here we're seeing all these scriptures about the adversity with a brother and like all these enduring terms. And so it's just like so beautiful to see all of this. Like it all applies to our lives. So whatever you have, a sister, a person in faith that you walk with, or even if you don't walk with them, people like, like, I don't know all of you guys. Like, I mean, I know you guys, but like, I don't get to hang out with you guys and walk with you guys and go to the store and go get brunch together type of thing. But like, I consider you guys my sisters in faith. And if there's something goes on, like, I want us to be very intentional about, like, if something happens, like, I know, LaTanya, she'll be quick to let me know if I offended her, and I'll tell her that, like, no, this kind of hurt my feelings. And so, but again, it was hard the first time to be like, hey, can I talk to you about something? Like, it really hurt my feelings. But like, if I really value that relationship, and not even just the relationship, like being faithful to Yah over the person, if that makes sense. Like, don't let us ever think that like me trying to go to like, Jacob going to Esau was like his faithfulness to Yah was more important than his faithfulness to Esau, if that makes sense. Because faithfulness to Yah gonna keep you right with everybody else. That's that when you fear Yah, when you love you with all your heart, mind, and soul, then you will love your neighbor as yourself. Because when you are faithful to the one who all the esteem, all the glory, all the honor goes to, you will walk a certain way. And it takes, it's a journey. But yeah, I just want to say that because I know like the whole Jacob brother Esau thing, the fact that he's bringing this up in the midst of him saying like, I'm building this altar to you because you was with me and I had to face my brother. And we know the struggle that he had to go through when he had to face his brother. Does anybody remember where I stopped? Because I don't. Okay. He said,
Verse 8.
revealed himself to him when he was fleeing from his brother. Okay. Now Deborah, Rebecca's nurse, died, and she was buried under the oak outside of Bethel. So it was named Alon Bakuth. Oh, scripture. I'm sorry. Genesis 35. We're at verse 8. Okay. After Jacob returned from Pada Aram, Elohim appeared to him again and blessed him. And here goes that name change again. Elohim said to him, your name is Jacob, but you will no longer be called Jacob. Your name will be Israel. So he named him Israel. And Elohim said to him, I am Elohim Almighty. Be fruitful and increase in number. A nation and a community of nations will come from you, and kings will be among your descendants. The land I gave to Abraham and Isaac, I also give to you, and I give this land to your descendants after you. Then Elohim went up from him at the place where he had talked with him. And Jacob set up a stone pillar at the place where Elohim had talked with him. And he poured out a drink offering on it, and he poured oil on it. Jacob, or Israel, called the place where Elohim had talked with him Bethel. And so I want to pause there because we talked about Bethel earlier, like house of Elohim. So when you're in Yah's house, you get a name change. Like it's just, you get a name change, you get a garment change, you get a personality change. Not that all your personality like is going to change, but like the way in which you operate is going to change. Yes, you're still bubbly, you're still fun, but you're going to have, your image is going to be more like him. You have a likeness change. And I just thought that was like, I thought it was really good to see. We've been seeing this repeating of the renewing of the covenant and the promise. that Yah gave to Abraham, which he gave to Isaac. And now we're seeing it again here with Jacob. Because, a couple weeks ago, we were all talking about how, Jacob's still in his process right now. He's still talking about the Elohim of Abraham and Isaac, my fathers. He wasn't taking it very personally. He wasn't taking ownership of that. This is your Elohim too. So we got to see Jacob grow in this process of just like, nah, bruh, I'm your Elohim. And Yah's coming to him saying, I changed your name. I am your Elohim. I'm going to give you the same words I gave to Abraham. I'm giving them to you now. Like, this is on you. Like, and I just thought that was really like beautiful we've all known it because we're reading it, years later. But like in this moment, we're seeing Israel realize it and then take up that responsibility.
So that's a threefold blessing, like how each generation it was magnified more and more because his name change was of a people. Like it wasn't Abrahamites or whatever, like the Israelites. He got named for something that totally went true to God's word of, I will establish you amongst the people. So even though he's sharing his granddaddy stories and everything, his total submission, or is that the thing that like now for generations to come, we talk about how, your grandmama's parents do carry you and things like that. But to totally see that thing unfold, he was named to the nations of nations. Like, I mean, he had that, like, I pray my children's children will be blessed, right? Like, you're seeing that word go out all the way and stretch to the ends of the earth. A nation of nations. He's saying he's blessing him all the way. Like, and he will be able to see it. So for Abraham, he told him, but way later, that's out of birthing the thing, right? For where he thought he wouldn't conceive. He thought he wouldn't have a child. So that's the birth of the dream. And then now 3 generations later, you're seeing that the whole Israelites, the name change, that identity is like, okay, now you've proven you believe this word to walk it through.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. So 35:21. Israel moved on again and pitched his tent beyond Negal Agder. While Israel was living in that region, Reuben went and slept with his father's concubine Bilhah, and Israel heard of it. I'm just gonna pause there because we kind of hit on this last week with the whole Dinah situation, but this is another situation. Just for some context here, you're like sleeping with your father's concubine, or basically he slept with his brother's mom. Cause like, according to
did we skip? Did we skip a little part?
Oh my gosh, you're so right. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Okay, 16. I'm sorry, 35:16. Woo!
Yeah. We skipped just a little bit.
Okay, so he talked with Elohim. He named the place Bethel. Then he moved on from Bethel while they were still some distance from Arath. Rachel began to give birth and had great difficulty. And she was having great difficulty in childbirth. The midwife said to her, "Don't despair, for you have another son." As she breathed her last, for she was dying, she named him Ben-Oni. And I think that means like son of my sorrow or son of my displeasure. But his father was like, nope, we're going to call him Benjamin, son of the right hand, which is like, I'm going to pause there because it's like in our distress, we'll like claim a thing, I will say a thing, and it's not it. And the father, in this instance, our heavenly father, but in this situation, his earthly father was like, no, my son of sorrow. Thank you, sis. So in her distress, because she was in despair and she was like in her own sorrow, she tried to pass that name down to her son and be like, son of my sorrow. But the father was like, son of the right hand. And it's just like a beautiful showing of just like, again, we're seeing this name change. Like in your despair, you name some things, you claim some things that Yah's like, no, I got a different name for you. I got something else I need you to claim. You got to let go of the despair and the sorrow that you had in this moment, because the thing that's birthed out of this situation is going to be good. So I just wanted to put that out there. If anybody else have any notes.
Was that the first one he ever named? Like all the other children were named by their mothers out of the moment in tradition. So this is the first time he's saying, like standing in that authority as the head of that nation. And he corrected that thing immediately.
Sure.
That's good, Taryn. That's good.
That is. That's yeah. So what does I say? You on one tonight, sis? Yes. So his father named him Benjamin or Benjamin. So Rachel died and was buried on the way to Ereth, that is Bethlehem. Over her tomb, Jacob set up a pillar, and to this day, that pillar marks Rachel's tomb.
And Rachel was the one that he loved a lot, or the one he loved less? Okay.
Who he loved the most. Yeah.
Okay.
That was his love. That was his wife of his love, of his passion. All right. Anybody else? Questions, comments, commentary, insights? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and read verse 21. Israel moved on again and pitched his tent beyond Migdal Eder. While Israel was living in that region, Reuben went and slept with his father's concubine Bilhah. And Israel heard of it. Jacob had 12 sons. Oh, okay. The sons of Leah, Reuben, the firstborn of Jacob, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, and Zebulun. The sons of Rachel, Joseph and Benjamin. The sons of Rachel's servant Bilhah, Dan and Naphtali. The sons of Leah's servant Zilpah, Gad, and Asher. These were the sons of Jacob, who were born to him in Padan Aram. And so, okay, now I get some context here. Reuben slept with Rachel's handmaiden. So, yeah, he slept with Dan and Naphtali's mom. Like, either way, it's just an atrocity. Either way, it's just foul. Either way, it's just nasty. And it literally goes into some detail. It's like sleeping with your father's concubine. Like, this literally is an insidious act. The offense here is treated more as a social, like a usurper. Like, basically, you sleeping with your father's concubine is like a usurper situation, and it is an sexual immorality. Possession of concubines that belong to the head of the clan were presumed as signs of leadership in the clan. When the father died, the care and ownership of the concubines passed on to the next head. Now, this is not in Yasharel. This is in the other surrounding nations and how they did things, right? Like, we know Yah has a hard no. We don't do that. You don't sleep with your daddy's concubine. You don't sleep with your daddy's wife. You don't sleep with his sister. You don't do none of those things. But it was just like, Reuben, you was the firstborn. Like, the title, the ownership, the kingship was yours, but then you did this. Go ahead, sis. I see you got your.
No, just thinking that, like, I mean, throughout all of that, that's like his mama. They got all these extra mamas. That is like your mama. But, I think I didn't listen to all of them, but the apothecary, whatever, where they were telling their stories.
Yeah.
But they a lot of them went back to confess that lust, like however it manifested. And some of it was out of lust for beauty, some of it was lust for control, right? Like, why would you go dominate? Because if it's still your sibling and that's their mom, that is like your mom. I mean, I got best friends I call they mama, or whatever. Like, how it just, yeah. But thinking about from the execution of the thing, how he probably meditated on it and how it was sitting with him for that to come take his birthright, right? Because now you did wrong, like you said.
Yeah, man, the testimony of Reuben is like, just like, again, that confessing that thing. I think it's so beautiful that we have the opportunity to read that and to see how Reuben's like, what I did a wicked thing. It had never been done in Israel. I was a disgrace. I was so down bad that if it wasn't for my father praying for me, Yahuwah would have took me out of the earth realm, like, because of that atrocity. And he goes into detail about him fasting for these 7 years, and how while he was fasting, Yah revealed to him like the spirit of fornication, the spirit of haughtiness, the spirit of lying, the spirit of insatiability, like all these different unclean spirits that especially the spirit of fornication, which attacks in your youth. And so Reuben saying, I was young, like I saw her, I went in her tent, like I just, I think he also mentioned how like he saw one of his other brothers, and it like he had jealousy in his heart, and he like also that also was a motivation for him to do this wicked thing. And it's just like he's being very transparent. He's being very like vulnerable with his sons to show them, hey, this befell me and I repented for it and it wasn't good. And I have like there are consequences for it, even though I repented. I don't want you to fall into the same trap. So let me tell you, let me give you this wisdom, this warning, so that you can know better, which is like the whole purpose of community. And he's like, I give you a nation of communities and kings, because if Israel as a nation is supposed to be the standard, lack of self-control, yes, which is another fruit of the spirit, self-control. So it's like the enemy is always going to want to do the opposite of what Yah calls us to produce. Yah calls us to produce self-control. The enemy gonna give you a lack of self-control. The fruits of the spirit tell you to be long-suffering. The enemy's gonna tell you you ain't gotta endure. The spirit of Yah tells us to have patience. What does the enemy do? Give you a short fuse. And so it's just like knowing these things and being actively aware of the foreign gods, the foreign thoughts, and the spirits that are opposite of what Yah's calling us into. But yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and finish this chapter unless anybody else has any like commentary or insights. Okay. 27. Jacob came home to his father Isaac in Merimah, near Ketha Abra, that is Hebron, where Abraham and Isaac had stayed. Isaac lived 180 years. Then he breathed his last breath and died, and was gathered to his people, old and full of years, and his sons Esau and Jacob buried him. And so I think it's interesting. I think because like when the whole debacle happened with Jacob and Esau, Isaac was just like, oh, I'm about to die and I'm on my deathbed, like, come here so I can give a blessing. And it's like, it's been at least 50 years, so like I don't know. I just thought about that. I'm just being like, okay, a couple chapters ago, we thought, like Isaac was on his last and he had to give this birthright over, et cetera, and all this stuff happened in the meantime. And Isaac just here kicking and living, and reconciliation doesn't happen. Esau's fury has subsided. Now they get to bury their daddy in peace because they reconciled, But it's just like, I don't know, that thought popped in my head. I'm like, that he lived 180, but the whole debacle with Jacob and Esau happened years ago. We thinking that he was just about to die, like maybe a year or two after that. No. But yeah, so.
But that's beautiful that Yah allowed him to see that. You know what I'm saying? He postured his heart right, and he was praying both ways, for whatever happened, wrong, misunderstanding, but to see Jacob return back home and to be renamed, I'm pretty sure on a spiritual level that just totally blessed him. But for Esau as well to accept him back in that time period for that. So his faith and intercession had to be carrying him for that good 50 plus years,
yes.
And to see Jacob's children, because he bought back the nations, right? Like, wow.
Yeah,
God, he'll show you that blessing. And the many scriptures that say he will perform, faithful to perform that word in you, that believes that. You stand on that thing, that it might not be today, tomorrow, next week, but he was there to see it.
Yeah, that's another kind of blessing and favor, because again, I know like not every time, we don't always get to see the seed that we planted sprout, but it's a blessing when Yah allowed Isaac to see not only the reconciliation of his sons, but also the manifestation of these many, many people, these many, many children, you know, to be like, wow, like my dad told me about this. I had, you know, this promise given to me by Yah, and I pass it on to my sons, and I get to see, like, imagine, you know, you had two sons, and one of your sons, well, both Esau and Jacob both came back with a lot of kids. Okay, but like Jacob comes back with 12 kids, and each 12 of these kids gonna have their own tribe. It's just like that's really wild. So I think that's another thing. The favor, again, like Yah put the fear of all the other nations like in them, but also like the favor that Yah has, even when they made their missteps. You know, He allowed Isaac and Jacob to see like all of this reconciliation and beauty and transformation happen. Go ahead, sis.
Mhm. Yeah, no, that I think this breakdown so far has been really awesome. But I guess like my question, and it could be broken down at a later time, like at a later time, because I feel like it's a really deeply rooted question that I have yet to get like walked through yet and really got an understanding. Like I hear people talking about it, but and I know that like in the scriptures it says that like, you know, many nations and things like that. But I guess my question is like how were the nations like developed, I guess. It's like I know that, you know, these individuals, they were born and you know, they were born, and like how is it determined other than like it being their you know, ordained by Yah. But I guess I kind of, whenever I read the scriptures, I never see like it going from like Reuben just being Reuben and his wife, it going into, you know, it being an entire nation or an entire lineage, like how like we understand like the tribe of Judah. Like how does it go from being Judah, you know, Jacob's son, to being, you know, the tribe of Judah, and from Israel being Israel, the way in which we understand now. And so I guess like I do obviously still have lots to read because I'm reading right now as well, like reading the Bible from front to back. But I guess it's kind of like a history lesson that I am interested in getting, because it's something that, you know, it's not a question of its legitimacy. It's just kind of like understanding the breakdown and everything like that. Um, yeah, I think that's it. Because I mean, you know, I've heard of all of the names and everything, and kind of I've gotten little breakdowns of like how this nation was this, and this person's father, and da da. But I never really get a breakdown of like even the development of the nation, or like how I said, like how it goes from just being, you know, Judah, Jacob's son, to being the tribe of Judah. So that is something I do want a history lesson on at some point, even if it be one-on-one, or we can do it with one of these, because it would be nice to know.
Yeah. I mean, my first response is going to be like, so obviously we see a little bit of details with Judah and how, like, you know, unfortunately he married a woman that he wasn't supposed to marry, but it still produced sons. And then it talks about Tamar and then those children. And so, and also looking back at how Yah presented wives to Abraham and Isaac before and Jacob, we have to not assume, but like the culture and context would be like, okay, the dad would be like, don't marry from this nation. You can pick women from over here in this nation. And we know it's going to be close in the vicinity, or they have to go back to certain places. And then obviously there was, you know, mixing, there was marriages. And even when we get into like the descendants, so like really going into those genealogies, you're going to see some stuff, you know, like literally next week. I don't know if we're gonna go in too deep of a detail. I'll ask y'all about how y'all want to go into like 36, but Esau's descendants, and like now we know that Esau and Jacob are on good terms. We could assume that maybe there were some marriages within like Esau's daughters and Jacob's sons. You know, like there's all these different scenarios, and right, and we don't have all of the answers like verbatim, because clearly Yah saying we don't need to know all that. You know, like he's like, I gave you genealogies here. And also in some of the extra biblical, I don't know in the Testament of Reuben if he talked about his wife, but I know Issachar does. And I know that some of the other brothers talks about like, you know, their wives and whatnot. We know Joseph, he marries an Egyptian, and we know a little bit of those stories. So like taking understanding of those stories can really help us understand the rest of the brothers' stories. But yeah.
Okay, and so I guess it would be good to, even in this era of the Bible, like in this section of the Bible that we're walking through, I mean, I wouldn't reject doing a genealogy kind of study where we spend like an entire one of these, because it is something I really do want to understand. I may not understand it all at once, but at least to be able to take notes and kind of like have it broken down, it'll help me a lot. Not just for the sake of the information, but genuinely because I've never like was able to look at it and have someone that I can ask questions without them like acting like I'm trying to question them, but I just want to know. And then let me see if I had any other questions, because I mean this is like school, okay? This is like Sunday school, okay? Friday night school. So I'm like, hey, I might as well ask the questions while the teachers is here. You know what I'm saying? Well, the people who've done the study, you know what I'm saying? The people who have done it, and I'm glad I can have somebody that I can ask the question. So yeah, I mean, whether, like I said, whether it's one-on-one or if we do an entire study of it as a group, whatever works. Because I got my notepad. So
I-
I haven't done like a deep study on. Oh, go ahead, sis T.
No, I was just gonna say that I know that definitely does help because I did that with First and Second Kings with the kings. I went down and named the kings that were wicked, the kings that were good, like so that I could like get, and who came from who, their sons. So it definitely helps. But I wanted to clarify like what you're asking, I guess, to see like is it are you trying to, or the thing that you want to study, is it a thing of finding out who's connected to the tribes, or are you saying like how the tribes were actually formed? I just want to make sure that I understand the question fully.
well, technically both, but I do want to know how they're formed. But I guess even just something that Samaria had said kind of also helped me like with the context as well. The
Mm-hmm.
cultural context really, like it was, normal, like whenever people, their wives, their, handmaids, their servants, things that like that became their own like little town, you know what I'm saying? And so a town that just ends up being so interwoven. And so I can imagine it turning into it's an entire nation, and then somebody has to be, the leader, and then people's like, oh, we want a king, and da da da. So then I totally understand. Like I guess even talking it out a little bit is kind of helping me like understand the development of how each one of the like basically the dads of
Mm-hmm.
these individuals, and they have kids, and then the kids have kids, and then you know what I'm saying, so that it kind of crosses and all those things. But I guess it would still be nice to, that question seeps into the second question that you wanted clarity on, which is, who's connected to who, and how was it developed, and how did we end up in America? I'm kidding. No. So,
Okay.
yeah. It looked like Desiree had a question inside of the chat.
Okay. She was saying, I believe it started with Shem, Noah's son, and how the land and stuff was divided up. Oh yeah, like so the whole division of the nations and stuff, that's back in Genesis 10, Table of Nations. So I would say we covered it a little bit, but not too deep. But like Genesis 10 is a really good start, sis, for like Table of Nations and seeing how like those divisions were divided up. And then obviously our history is focused on Shem's line, and then from Shem to Abraham, and then we get to like the 12 tribes through Israel and seeing like all the intermarriages that happened. And we have to also understand that there was a lot of like what we would call incest, but not like brother sister, but like first cousin, second cousins. Like that is what was going on. And so we also know that it's a whole bunch of like Shechem women in the house of Jacob right now because Simeon and Levi just killed all the men and took all the women. You can imagine, you can assume that they married some of them women. And that's what helped produce more sons and daughters. Okay. Because like, yeah, all them women couldn't be just handmaidens. There was only one daughter, Dinah, and there was only like, grandma and mama and the handmaidens. And so all of these women from another nation that Simeon and Levi just killed every man, and they took all the women and children captive to like now be under the leadership of Jacob, just like putting two and two together and how some of that kind of stuff kind of happens. Not saying they all took women from like these conquered cities, because we know that's not true. We do know that, like, hey, go to your uncle in the land of Shem over here and go find a wife. Like, we know that happened because we see it happen with Isaac, and we see it happen with Jacob. And so, like, we're not gonna have all like the deep details, but the genealogies that Yah does provide us with can give us some insight.
But I mean, now they're grown and they're so big. It's not just like one Jacob and Esau. Is if you talking about 12 men, and then they all got a couple boo things on the side, everybody having babies and stuff, like it's growing rapidly for their house to spread out. And I think it's a lot to digest, Ashir. So sometimes I try to just take just one thing, right, and then connect that house back to stuff, because this is the part where we start to get lost. They'll introduce a lot of, this is the genealogy of, but then the next storyline might not be connected to one of those. There's a lot of names that they're listing, but I mean, my question would be Ishmael's daughter. Like, what's the key? Pull one thing out of that and then try to track that genealogy down, because that's a whole lot of things that are probably, like we said, overlapping.
And sometimes when you just reading, like, I know that sometimes you remember, like, it comes to your remembrance. The Ruach brings it to my, because I know that when I was reading 36, I was like, oh, so this person is connected to Esau, is the great of Esau. And so, it like starts to connect also, like when you start to read, but it also does help, like Taryn was saying, like, if you do, like the way I did it with First and Second Kings is I literally listed, the patriarch in a sense, and then like went to the sons, and everybody that actually came after them and from the same tribe as well, because it tells you what tribe they were, if they were from Judah or Israel, like, so kind of get it like that. So I'm a more visual person. So I can, if I can see it, I can understand it better. So I don't know what kind of learner like you are, but like, I know that helped me, like writing it out and just kind of doing like a little chart for myself so I can kind of see, so that then also when I do read and I do come to certain points, I can go back to my little chart and be like, oh, this was
connect the dots,
and so on and so forth. They came from this tribe or whatever, just to help me understand the genealogy a little bit more. But I also was telling Samaria last night, I was like, when we be, like we sometimes, like let me say, I'm saying we a lot, like I'm French. Me, when I be reading sometimes, or before I was like skipping over some of the genealogies, like just kind of skipping over it, some of it just being like, well, I'm gonna just go, to this part, I'm gonna skip over this part. But I'm like, man, them genealogies, like be good, because then you come to a point where you come to, like Ashira now, like you come to you have these questions, you like, well, who is this person connected to? You be like, oh Lord, so now you got to go all the way back and figure out the genealogy. So it does actually, help. And then also like the additional resources, that we have, because, the script sometimes, the fill in the blanks, like of like, context in the cultural context, or just like history in itself. Our history tells a lot as well. So like, I'll also like research some of that part as well to like, geographically, like where people were located and stuff like that actually helps. So just kind of like, provide insight like Taryn, and everybody else, as far as like how you can kind of go about like doing the research, or we can go about doing the research, because obviously we can definitely do it together as well. But that definitely does help with certain things, especially when you come into the new or the renewed testament is what I like to call it, because that's what it is. When you come into the renewed testament, you can see kind of like those periods, like during like I know I used to think like, how did when we come into the renewed testament, like you see everybody have Greek names now, right? So then like you go back to I think, is it Malachi, or you go back to like, I forgot what book, and you see that there was like a 400 like, period of like, or a certain period of like time where they went into the Hellenized age, to where now everything got Romanized, and now like everybody has these Greek names. That's why you see everything like pretty much in Greek when you come to the Renewed Testament. So yeah, I'm just saying like that. I hope I'm not talking over, but that definitely helps you to understand, like, when you're reading, and to keep it into context, and to keep it into the cultural context, when you know like what time period it's in as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I was like asking, because I'm like, I mean, I just, like I said, like I'm really in Genesis 24 right now, okay, or 26 or something like that. Like I'm in my pursuit to read the entire Bible front to back, so that, and I'm actually reading the genealogies. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm a little behind, but I'm tailing right behind where we are right now. So I'm like,
you ain't behind, sis. You right. We trust me. We're going back to Genesis because we are doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Fill in those blanks. Obviously when you read something the first time too, you don't always get the full revelation of what it is. You read it again, and I'm pretty sure when we read it again, we gonna get something else as well. So you don't always get the full revelation of things when you read it, and it depends on where you at, where your mind is as well, like where you are in your walk as well, because certain things I didn't even question before. I didn't necessarily go deeper into, because I'm just like, oh, I'm just reading it, like things but now I'm like, no, it got to be something else to this. Like I gotta get into this. I want to know these things. So
like, why are they making it such a big deal? Like some things, it's like, wow,
yes,
they seem very shocked about that. Like, what is the context of why they act so shocked about this thing that seems so simple to me? And that's another thing, is like, even like these Bible studies help me think of it differently. Obviously, like Royal Roots, things like that. Like when I read the scripture and I see other people studying the scriptures with a lens of just like the true word, though obviously we know that the word is alive, and that's the most beautiful aspect, is that it's alive in the context of like its history, it's spiritual, it's present, and it's also past, and it's testimony. And so it's like it's very multifaceted. And so like you said, like you can't just read it once and expect to get a full understanding of it. Like you can read one sentence, and you may have looked up the definition of children and have a completely different revelation of what the word children means in Hebrew. And then the word right next to it, like anah, like what does that mean? You know what I'm saying? Or just kind of like every word becomes an entire, it makes it alive. It brings it alive, so definitely appreciate you guys kind of like, being here, kind of helping with that too. Because like I said, I mean, I definitely appreciate having, people who have done that study as well. And it's like, hey, look, I'm not going to do it for you. I'm gonna tell you how to do it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I'm going to teach you how to do it. And if you want to know, then you're going to find out. And so I'm studying, and reading this word, trying to eat it up, so thank you guys.
You're welcome, sis. Speaking of like on that same vein, like I'm reading this again in 21. It's like Jacob moved on again and pitched his tent beyond Migdal Eder. Like the camp is so big, like Taryn was saying, and rapidly producing so fast. Like Israel literally had to get up and pitch a tent somewhere else, where Reuben was on a whole nother side, another part of the city, where he was able to take advantage and do this thing that when he slept with Bilhah. It's just like, that's how, like, he was pitching a tent to expand the camp. Like, literally picture. It's not like, oh, my dad was in another room. No, your dad was in a whole couple miles away, expanding the territory of the seed producing. Like, and it was, so yeah. I wanted to add this one thing too, like that expanding of territory and all this stuff was going on. So this is in the Culture Context Bible. I just wanted to say that, because I was reading it while y'all were talking, and I was like, well, now that's real insidious, where it says that Reuben even sleeping with Bilhah was like, this is just speculating. Hence the one Bilhah was like an offense against her, Bilhah particularly, because it would ensure Leah being the principal wife. Like, because Leah is his mom, and he's seeing his mama be second fiddle this whole time, Rachel's finally dead, but Bilhah is Rachel's handmaiden. So like, so that Bilhah wouldn't get first principal wife. It would be like he has no other option to choose but Leah because Reuben has now defiled his father's concubine, which was Rachel's handmaiden. And I was like, if that was the case, that was really, really premeditated, you know. And so that's why I'm glad we have the extra biblical accounts to like read it from, you know, Reuben's point of view, but just like reading these like cultural context and like what that would look like as the firstborn son doing this. It was like he was trying to establish his own authority. Like he wasn't trying to solidify being firstborn son. He was doing something else. It was like, oh, the love of a mother. Like you might have did too much, you know. But again, like I love reading these cultural context, little splurges, because it just gives like, I didn't think about it that way. Oh, I didn't think about it that way either. You know, so it's just like interesting. Either way, it was a grave offense. However, whatever he did for whatever reason he did it, it was a high offense against Yahuwah. Sister Akoti Aisha, she just put a chart of the kings of Israel, Ashira, if you want to copy that link that she put in there, that might be able to help. When I was doing genealogy studies too, y'all, I literally just picked King Herod from like New Testament, and I tracked it all the way back to like Esau's family. And I was just so surprised that like Esau and Ishmael, there was like King Herod's mother was an Ishmaelite from a certain tribe of the Ishmaelites, but his dad was an Edomite from one of the clans of Edom. And I just thought that was just wild. And I was like, oh my gosh, like how is he the king of the Jews and he not a Jew at all? You know, like he a whole Edomite and a whole Ishmaelite, but like he took on their customs and said, like, I'm a Jew now, I'm the king. Like it's so like the genealogies are so interwoven and it just opens up the whole Bible even more. I'm excited. Like, you know, I haven't done a lot of deep dive studies. I did a few kings, I did King Herod, I did a few people here or there. I even did Job because I want to figure out like Job's story is like he's a whole book. Who is Job? Job is from the line of Shem. Like, you know, he's from the Shem line, but not directly connected to Abraham though. Like it's crazy. It's cool, but like it's a lot. So, you know, go slowly, don't overwhelm yourself. Like maybe pick one person and do a deep dive on that person. And then like, you know, maybe y'all be like, I gave you what you needed.
Yeah.
And maybe put it down because he may not want you to look up every single clan, every single tribe.
Yeah.
But don't wear yourself out.
Listen, one thing that whenever me and Derek both came into like the truth, one thing we were like steadfast on is like we're not going to just be head knowledge people. Like I don't care about just only having information in my head and like what am I like, not to say that any of it's useless, you know what I'm saying? But I mean there's somewhere in Ecclesiastes, somewhere in there, Ecclesiastes, Ephesians, somewhere in there, where it's just like, okay, you really don't need to know every single thing because like what good does it actually profit you? Somewhere along the lines of that. And you know, I've definitely made a commitment to not, but I'm like, while we're reading this, it would be nice to just kind of know even the basics, like I said, the basics of Israel, the basics of those 12 tribes, just the basics of it, and then be able to when I'm reading the scriptures, because I'm not, one thing I'm not going to do is go and argue with people about it. Like that's crazy. Like no, that's what kept me away from it for so long in the first place. I'm not going to be one of them, you know, in the name of God, like seriously. But you know, the information does help the study, like you said. Like this person wasn't even a Jew, so it shows why it's so much more grievous, right? Why it's so much more intense, and it's kind of having the history of that. And then like for us as in, obviously it's our history too, right? It's like when we look at the scriptures and we understand like, okay, like, you know, if this is the script, this is where I'm from, like these are my ancestors. And so it's like kind of help you understand the grief that it caused y'all, you know what I'm saying? I feel like understanding the direction of it, you know what I'm saying, and the part that we play in it and why and where we are now in present tense, you know what I'm saying? Because it's not a reason to just get angry, because I know I watched something, I think it was from Hebrew to Slave or something like that or something, and it almost made me mad. It almost made me angry, but I'm like, no, I'm not gonna be angry. It's just like, okay, this is good information to have also to understand, you know, where I come from and how blessed we are now to be able to have so much access to so much information. And it's like we're the unfolding of the testimony. We're the unfolding of the word that what it said in one of the apocryphas of Baruch or somewhere in there, or it was a Hebrew word, so it was like Baruch. I don't know what that translates to, but we came to ourselves. So we're coming to ourselves, and that kind of rings in my head every time I get into these scriptures. Every time I want to know more about it, it's like, dang, like I actually am coming to myself. Because when I think about like the history and our ancestors, it's sad. It's like to be like even present tense people that we know, family members, cousins, to be so deeply deceived and not know anything, like, and not want to know. It's a blessing to know and to want to know. So like, I'm
I
hungry.
think that I heard a Bible study from maybe Truth Unedited where it broke out how they dispersed, like how the tribes or kingdoms, like how did people end up in Germany, how did people end up on different continents, and that sort of thing. But I think he had like a breakdown of he was teaching a message on something, and then he went back and gave the history of like where it really started at. I'll see if I can find that one.
I think that was the We Are Not Black People.
Yes, it was
teaching.
long, but I mean, he broke it up
Absolutely.
into a bunch of
Yes, he
steps
did.
on it, and I was sitting up like, oh,
Me
because
too.
like some of the little Facebook things. What was it? Is it like David's great great grandmother or something? Was she the prostitute that let the rope down to save, let the people sneak in and out or whatever? And it's like, oh, that's a little factoid of the day, to trace it back. But for me, it makes me connect a little bit better, little more, because it's like, oh, I see that now, in the moment of it.
Natalie mentioned a really good resource, Babylon to Timbuktu. I
Oh,
have
I'm gonna write that down.
Yeah, Babylon and Timbuktu. It's like a little skinny book, but it's really good. It has
I
a good
think
break.
I have that in my Amazon in my Amazon cart right now.
I also have a link, y'all, to a document that I created a couple years ago where it talks about like the ancient Israelites. It talks about the scattering and have all these different links to books and histories from like British and European and French like explorers talking about, oh yeah, the Hebrews are black and they're Negroid and they were in this area and they were in this area and then this time, they got pushed over here. And then because of the Arab invasion, they burned their Torahs and then they forced them to convert to Islam, and they wouldn't allow them to have like the Pentateuch or the Old Testament. They wouldn't allow them to have that. Like all this information while we was in slavery, but like it's all these other nations documenting this stuff that they knew. And it's like if you click on the links that I put, it sends you to the website, to the archive, to where the book where you can read it yourself. And so like I'll share that with anybody who would like that.
Yeah, I mean that'll be a very good resource.
Now they don't go too deep to tell you like where Reuben was or where Dan was, but it mentions like it does mention Judah, and I think it mentions the tribe of Dan, I believe, as well. But we know Dan ended up getting cut off because they're not even mentioned in the 12 tribes when we get to Revelations. So that's a whole nother conversation. Like what happened with Dan? Like I haven't really done no research on that either. But I was like, damn, why they not listed in they not listed in Revelation with the 44,000? What they do?
Remember when they I remember Dan. Remember when their line got cut off because it was something about like they intermingled with like some women that they weren't supposed to. I can't think of it like right off the top of my head, but they intermingled with some women that they weren't supposed to, pretty much, and their line got cut off. I gotta look up and see what book it's in, but I'll send it to you once I see it. But yeah, they ended up getting like. It was done. It was over with.
And everybody keep putting their toe on the line, and they gonna stop playing with y'all. That's what it is. That was that. Like I keep moving the goalposts, and I keep forgiving and seeing and seeing and seeing, and y'all gonna keep chasing tail until you get you in trouble.
Y'all saw King Solomon.
Because y'all is so about the seed. Like when you understand the seed, what a son is, someone who's supposed to continue their father's house, which is how we can understand Yahusha. Like I just love it. So like Hebrew, the Hebrew word, the pictograph is so like intentional. But like y'all serious about your seed. Like when he's talking to the husband, he's talking to the men, he's talking about the men of the tribes. Your seed is not just for you to produce kids, it's to like multiply my image. But you keep sowing your seed with people who don't want to multiply my image.
Yep. Yep.
You're now producing something that is foreign to me. Those are not my kids. They came from you, but they not mine. Like, because they don't look like me, they don't talk like me, they don't want to do like me. Like, they become sons of perdition at that point. And it's just like, it's so spiritual too, because it's just like if we become sons and daughters, our whole prerogative, our whole mandate is to continue the Father's standard, to continue our Father's house in the way that He said to keep it going.
But we should look like Him. You're absolutely right. We're supposed to look like it, right?
We accept foreign seeds or foreign gods or foreign concepts, then we produce children, we produce a produce, an offspring that is nothing like the Father. Like that is the whole point of us having to be reborn again, to be sons and daughters, so that we can produce the image of. So
if the root is good, the fruit is good. Okay.
I told my kids, one of my daughters, the middle twin, I said, do you know that I've already carried my grandchildren? She's like, oh my gosh, get off Discovery Health. I was like, well, they say that when I carry you, that your eggs being in you were a part of me. And then scientists actually do say that there's a different connection from the maternal grandparent, right, mother line versus the paternal, because the man didn't carry that. He laid the seed, but he didn't carry that. And she's like, that's pretty gross if you think about it. I was like, I think that's pretty awesome if you think about it. Like, I have a direct connection, you know what I'm saying, to that. And we think about that as we're reaping and sowing that, and that replica, the more you're conceiving, if you're doing it from a bad place, like that thing is just growing from that way. If you're doing it from Yah's place, you should be imparting those things, the fruit of the spirit, what you carry, what you know. I mean, you see the habits of people. My husband is just like his grandmama. You could tell she raised him. 6 a.m, Bible open, and make the bed, read the Bible. But the characteristic of that was what was sown and what was seen, you know what I'm saying? So, and then we think about that from natural things, but what about spiritual things? You know, if you're a praise and worshiper and your children see that, or people, and you associate with that, if you're a warrior, you know, and that sort of thing, or how you say, seeking after the gifts of Yah, you know, craving to do better and stuff, you've already sown that in there. So, I mean, that genealogy, it's so much bigger than, you know, you see certain houses. I tell my kids that too. You see the lion spirit somewhere, you see the, you know, and they all good with it. Like everybody, you see the drug spirit, you see the, you know, just certain things like that. And you want a house to not have those things, right? So then them messed around and found out. That's nobody cut it off and put their foot down to stand for it. And yeah, I'm interested now. That's gonna be my week to have some stuff to do. I'm so right with it, Sister Ashira.
Listen, I've been starting reading because I'm like, these phones, all this social media is going to be up out of there. Okay. I was hiking peeping. I was like, I watched this video of, what was his name? Mark Zuckerberg or somebody, whoever owned Meta. And like, I was looking, he was like talking about something. He was talking about something, and I was like he was just talking about how they changing the guidelines and the privacy and the how they're going to be, you know, managing, you know, content and things like that. And I was like, yeah, this stuff's gonna crumble. I'm like, it's gonna go. And I was like, you know, and I was like, man, y'all has already started like making like kind of drawing on that like love to read again. And it's like literally getting into reading again, and like not reading on my phone, not reading on your phone, but like just reading the pages, books, poetry, you know, historical things. And then he got me back into writing. So I'm like, not just writing songs because, you know, I'm an artist, but like just writing and writing streams of consciousness, you know what I'm saying? Just kind of conversation between me and him, like things like that again. And I'm like, man, if we could get ourselves from switch gears and really, read and study. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't always have to be like something super deep, but like that's where y'all has me. And I'm like, I might as well be reading something, you know what I'm saying? Something meaningful, something very, very, that brings understanding to my Elohim. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? Like that helps me understand, not because the lineage itself is the most important thing, but it's like, even like I said, even just watching that one video like about the lineage, it helped me even like I said, understand how grievous it was, and why when revelation really start hitting for real, when the fullness of wrath starts hitting for real, that like we'll understand why it's so warranted too, because understanding the history of it, and it'll help me understand as well when it really start hitting, because I'm like, y'all was really out here, like, for one, doing him dirty, but then doing his people dirty, doing his children dirty, doing everything in your power to keep them from themselves. Everything is crazy, but it's only because they were being obedient to the punishment, to the curse, right? So it's like, it's crazy, like, so that's where I am. That's where I am, and I'm like, I just, I'm hungry, like I said, because
Mhm.
it's a familiar zeal when I was in like the deception, but it's like it's a familiar zeal to like where I am now. So I'm glad I have a place to land it and to share it. You know, we all need to be reading books for real. You know.
Hallelujah. Okay, so I did post in the link in the chat. It's this long Google Doc link, but I put underneath it like what it is. So it's just like different, it's like links to different like books and archives around the world that like talk about different migrations and stuff. So on top of Babylon 10 book 2, there's this link that can point you to a whole bunch of other books as well for that. But yeah, we praying for everybody on our endeavors of studying and applying the word, and how Yah is, just opening up the book. Like he's really just opening it up. And like we're just seeing the manifestation of that.
I wanted to correct myself real quick, because I think the story that I'm thinking of, I think that was Benjamin.
Oh yeah, girl. Benjamin they didn't get cut off though, but Benjamin was dirty, boy. They did some foul stuff. I mean, everybody did foul stuff, but the way that they wrote about the foul stuff Benjamin did, I was like, oh my gosh.
I think that I don't, but I know I read about Dan. It was something about idolatry. It was something about something, but I just want to correct myself. Don't quote me on Judges. I know that it was something, but give me some time to actually like look it up and
Was it
see.
something to do with the Nephilim, Sis and Dan?
Yeah, it was something about like idolatry. Like it was something about them like,
Because I remember reading that too, but
doing some idol worship, but I don't remember where it is.
same, I know.
Oh yeah, I think it's in there somewhere, but I don't want y'all to be like, T said it's Judges. Sometimes I think I know the scripture and I don't really know the scripture. So sorry.
I wanted to say one other thing too. So Paris had asked T about like Genesis like 1 and 2. So me and T started this Bible study. We were doing Genesis. We did Genesis 1 and 2 by ourselves on a Zoom call. And then while we were getting done with Genesis like 2 and 3, we were like, maybe we should open it up to everybody. And that's how we created this link. So we don't have an official recording. We don't have official notes in the study for Genesis 1 and 2. But if y'all want to, we can go back to Genesis 1 and 2 and do a recorded studying and have all the notes, because it was so good. Like when we went over, I was like, girl, we should have recorded it. Like we literally were saying that as we were going through the study of Genesis 1 and 2 together. I was like, girl, we should have recorded. This could have been a whole podcast episode. Like it's just so good. And we're just talking about the word. But like we did it because we were just having Bible study. So if that's something y'all would like to do, so we can just have it on record for people, to go over Genesis 1 and 2, because again, that hits on women, that hits on what Yah calls us being formed out of the side chamber of man. It's like so deep, and it's so important for women to understand this, and men as well, your husbands, to understand like how Yah sees you versus how man sees women after the fall. Like we getting back to like before the fall. So let's understand what that design was before sin entered. That's the goal. That is the model that we want. And so, but yeah, it was really, really good. So we had to like pick a time or date to like pause on our Genesis study to go back to Genesis 1 and 2 to cover that together because it was great. But without further ado, I'm about to cut the camera or cut the recording so we can pray and we can continue fellowshipping if you like. But I need to cut the camera because we've been on this call for a good almost 3 hours. No, wait, no, 2. I'm sorry, 2 and some change.